All right, Sam,
All right.
greatest moderator in the AI world. You want to kick us off?
We'll see about that. We haven't even established a name for the podcast yet, but I'm sure it will emerge organically.
Send prompts, not nudes. I just want to AI some shit.
I had AI create a very rough outline. We can skip over any of these that we'd like, but there's some basics, starting with some cold, open, quick intros. Who would like to start? Tell us who you are and what you do. And one personal fact or funny story that has nothing to do with work. Randy, I'm nominating you.
Have we started? We're live.
I suppose we are. Said kick it off.
So, my name is Randy Lariar. Up until yesterday, I was director of data analytics consulting over at Optiv and have spent the last too many years in consulting, and before that working in data analytics and product management in and around the financial services space primarily, but also more recently in cybersecurity. I've been messing around with natural language processing, machine learning, and AI for the last decade, and been saying for a while that this is going to be a big deal. And thankfully, 2 years ago, ChatGPT proved me right. And so now it's been a lot of fun to talk to people around the country about what it is and what it does. And in that process, I stumbled upon these fine gentlemen and had the opportunity to get engaged with a company we now call Naible. Fun fact about me is that I'm expecting a second child in February, and I'm working very hard to bring voice capability to everything we do before I have to start using both my hands for diaper changing.
Awesome. Welcome to Naible full-time as a co-founder. That's pretty incredible leap right there. James, how about you?
Well, I gotta say, Randy stole my thunder with the fun fact.
Hey, it's still fun for you too. You're free to share yours.
We're all about new things here at Naible.
My fun fact just arrived sooner than Randy's did. Yes, I just had my first child, boy, and if I look tired, it's because I am. But my name's James Hilbert, Chief Operating Officer at Naible. It's one of the early co-founders here. Spent most of my career in data analytics, mostly in pricing in the financial industry. I have a communication background before that, so a lot of my data analytics experience has been self-taught. I consider myself more of a problem hacker, which is why I love AI, because I get to flex my creativity and apply that to solving problems, and that's what I love doing. Naible's an awesome place, and it's the type of culture we're trying to build here, and I think we're having fun doing it and building some really cool ideas.
Absolutely, which we will talk about later, some of our cool ideas after we get through all the intros. I'll go next because, John, I'd like you to give us a bit of the origin story about Naible following me. But my name is Sam Bischof. I'm the Director of Marketing for Naible and the newest member of Naible, I suppose, from the foundation of it. Stoked to be here. It's been incredible. I've learned a lot from everybody already. My background's in digital marketing and media production. I run a camera, I produce media for brands, and I've worked in digital marketing on and off throughout the years. I'm a bit of a floater. I just do my own thing and explore new topics and new ventures and see where they take me. Fun fact or fun detail about me, I was once in a band, and we were doing an album release party at a local club here, and our promoter told us they'd booked somebody as our opening act that was traveling in a little van down from Denver. Cool band. We had a great night. Show went beautifully. The opening band was great. And it turns out that was the Lumineers right before they went to South by Southwest and blew up the following year. So that was a cool little adventure for me back in the day. I've since hung up that rock star towel, but still play regularly.
Sam, thank you for coming to join us to do to us what you did to the Lumineers.
Yeah, I'm going to blow you guys up. That's the plan.
I played in a band too. We should, if you're ever in Missouri.
I was going to say, we're going to start. Yeah, we got to get an Naible band put together. Whoever wants to join. John, you're up. The main man himself. Tell us who you are, fun fact, and then give us a brief origin story on Naible and how you ended up here.
So, yeah, John Petty, CEO, founder of Naible. I have been at this for coming up on 16 months. I don't know, a little bit over a year. Originally, it was Magi, actually, for those that have been around long enough, more of a think tank, more oriented towards giving folks who had an opportunity, didn't have an opportunity to mess around with a lot of the AI in corporate environment or enterprise. So my background is mostly spending time in either government or corporate enterprises, building organizations such as insider threat or data protection, running agents worldwide, different things like that. But a lot of the fear mongering, I'll say, with generative AI early on, that it's going to steal all your data and oh my God, you can't let it touch anything in your enterprise because it's going to just take it all, was one of the reasons why we created Magi. Originally, I wasn't really thinking that would become like what Enable is today. I was more of just, I was connected to the right people who put me in the right place and offered us a lot of infrastructure and things that we couldn't get access to even at the companies I was at. So through that, it put us in a really awesome spot to see Copilot before it was Copilot, and be in the studio before it was Copilot Studio, and also be part of like building the AI studio and building the security elements within the AI studio. And when I like realized behind the curtain what was being built or being part of being built, I think me and James were just like, why are we not doing this? Was really what it came down to. It was just like, oh my God. We had several, I won't even call them customers, but like close friends or associates that like we're giving tools to or we're building stuff for, and they're just like, what in the hell is this? And at the time we thought GPTs were cool. And now I don't think I built a GPT in, I don't even know, 6 months, unless somebody directly asked me to.
Yeah.
But the biggest push in my mind was really, I saw one, a lot of misinformation, and then two, a lack of understanding. And through that, it wasn't enough to just talk to people. It was like, how do we show them or make things more accessible to them? Not just from an educational standpoint, but from an AI standpoint. It's one thing if you are a decent prompt hacker. It's a totally different thing if you're an expert prompt. I'll call it prompt hacking, because if you're really good, that's what you're doing. You're not just prompting the AI. You're getting it to do things it wasn't designed to do. And when you move into that space, you end up seeing the real capabilities of what not just one LLM can do, but what happens when you start stringing 50 of them together. And you start orchestrating those 50 to think and process and create data and to simulate data and to interact and communicate, and all these really organic things that all the data scientists were saying can't be done and shouldn't be done. And it's not designed for that for years and years. And me and James were stringing these things together very early on through like manual interaction before we even knew how to do some of it through code. And we're like, but trying to show people screens. Do you see? Now I'm really excited because we're about ready to push out our first product and really get to where we get to actually get customer feedback at a larger scale and start to develop the product more oriented towards those customers that we want to serve, and be on that to the democratization journey with people who don't know how to prompt, don't want to learn how to prompt, but they do understand that there's power behind what AI can provide them.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I was just gonna add to that. That was really, John, as we were going through that process, that was one of the biggest epiphanies was, man, like how much you can really get out of it, how much value you can really get out of using the new generative AI that's coming out. But that realization of you really have to be getting deep into it and thinking through it and problem hacking it, right? Which a lot of folks don't have enough time to do. And so that sort of led us on this journey to like, hey, how do we really simplify this? How do we get the same value for people that we've figured out how to get in a much simpler way that it's not going to take people months of banging your head against the keyboard to try to figure out how to get the thing to cooperate. So I just wanted to add to that because that was another really sort of a aha moment, at least for me, when we were going through that in the early days.
Yeah, I think that sums it up really well from a slightly outsider's perspective, me coming in later than all of you guys and getting exposed to your level of technical knowledge. And I was coming in from more of a, I see the writing on the wall. I want to understand it deeply. My background's not deeply technical, but when I came here, it's like I start talking to John and James and Randy, and we can build anything. What do you want to do? What should we do? How do we build it? And now it's focusing all of that insane knowledge down into a deliverable way that we can help other people have access to this same level of tools and efficiency with AI by simplifying it, which leads into our product. But before we do that, John, you never told us a fun fact about yourself.
Oh, but there's so many. Fun fact about myself. Let's see. I am a cancer survivor.
I had no idea.
So yeah, 3 different types of cancer all at the same time, and 3 surgeries and 3 different types of chemo over 3 months. Lots of 3s. It was a rough ride. I will put it that way. Stage 4, several major organs and all sorts of fun stuff. And that was after my deployment to Afghanistan.
I don't know which part of that's supposed to be fun, but it's definitely insightful to learn.
I thought he was going to talk about his bourbon collection.
Oh, man.
We're happy you're still here.
I was going to say, and just scoot over. Bourbon. No, I don't know. There's a racing rig next to me. There's bourbon, big speakers in the other room. There's big speakers in this room too. I don't know. There's a couple fun facts.
John does all the things. From my observations so far, he dabbles in all of the things.
It's like,
Go ahead, James.
I was gonna say it's like going to Candyland whenever I visit.
You mentioned that we're getting ready to launch our very first product. In fact, as we speak, we are opening up our alpha early adopters phase and filling about 50 seats for early testers. Randy, do you want to share a little bit about the future of this product, how we envision it, some of the technical capabilities? Give us an overview there.
Yeah. So as you might imagine, over the years, John, James, myself, and the team, we've built so many tools and so many things that have been useful for us individually or our friends and people we work with. As we think about bringing products to market, it's amazing it's hard to think of things you can't do with AI if you put the right solutions together. So we're focusing on in launching a product is really start to show that vision, show some of the reimagining of how you do creative work. And a lot of our early customers have been focused on writing, coding, designing, things that you get the sense from a bunch of different apps or different kind of marketing materials that come out from big tech companies that this capability is out there, but it still feels a bit inaccessible. So we're going to make it accessible. Our first 50 users, we're going to give you ability to play with some of those toys. We want to understand what's working, what's not, because I think a lot of it is on the interface, right? And on how do we make this a valuable experience? How do we make sure that all the power tools we have are plugged in the right way to deliver the value for you to really start to see, once you see the potential of AI and how generative AI can be applied across so many different problems, it's very hard to stop thinking about it. It's very hard to stop to imagine going back to work in any other way. I think we all came to that realization, and that's why we're here. And we want to share some of that with people. And so this product that we're going to launch, Naible Nexus, and these first users are going to help us steer that direction to communicate that story about transformation, creativity, and human potential. And we're going to have some fun along the way.
Well said. And this question's open to anyone, but how would you describe I guess our product differentiates from other AI tools? Of course, we're all in the space. We see new tools being launched literally every hour at this point. There's versions of new AIs just rewrapped and repackaged and resold. What are we doing to differentiate ourselves there?
I think that the fun stuff is yet to come. I'll put it that way. There's definitely a lot we're not going to release out the gate. And the differentiator may come later. But right now, the goal is to create a community-driven feature list of these things and use them to prioritize. I think, Randy, you said it very well, but we're close to probably like 350 different projects at this point that are generative AI based that all are unique in their own way, problem they solve or a thing they do. And when you start to combine some of those things, they get really powerful, especially as we start talking about agentic structure. So for getting to what is the UVP, I think the UVP is going to be the people that we put in the community and the way that those people help shape how we build this around that community.
I might also add too, we all come from security and risk backgrounds. We have intimate understanding of what's at stake when you take people's data. Many applications that are out there are land grab, right? Big tech companies that are putting out capability because they want you to stay on their platform and do different things. So I think our philosophy is a little bit different. Our focus is definitely more on the community, on the people, and transformation, and making sure that we're building tools that have that at the center rather than bolting it on at the end.
Yeah, there's a bit of consolidation happening there too, right? Where part of the problem in the market is just dozens and dozens of tools that all serve different functions and solve different problems. And we're bringing some of those together, at least the basics, to help people and then teach them along the way. I think community is a word that you guys are probably sick of hearing me say, but in general, we all identify that hole in the market where we're in this every single day, and it's easy for us to understand where it's moving and where it's going. But you step outside of this little bubble of ours and start talking to your neighbor or your average person, and you quickly realize that there's still just a massive gap in education and understanding that we're hoping to close. James, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I can just go back to the simplify AI. I think our immediate mission is to get away from that blank chat box with the blinking cursor and trying to figure out, all right, I'm trying to do something. How do I get from A to Z? And give you a head start and get us closer to value off the bat. And then I would say, and maybe this, John, you can keep me honest here, but I'd say our future vision is that builds itself, right? That these things are dynamic to you as a user, and we pretty much want to, our sort of vision is that we are moving into an ecosystem that's truly adaptable, dynamic, and personalized. And I think that's where the fun stuff, I think, is coming.
Yeah. I think, James, the other thing that you've been really instrumental in driving is that we are an AI native company, right? Coming into this, understanding what's possible, we are building, and James, in your operations role, you're leading so much of the capability so that we get the same benefit, that we're trying to do things in ways that are empowered. Not to put you on the spot, but I think there's a lot of stuff that you've been building recently and that is on the roadmap is going to make our lives a lot more fun, and looking forward to sharing that with our clients too.
Yeah, I literally, anytime I'm doing something, I'm thinking about how can I do this with AI? Whether it's, hey, we need to get some ideas for social media posts, or we need to do analysis on what our forecasting is for finances, or how do we make faster decisions as a company? We're small, we got to be lean, we got to move fast. And how do we do that?
Allowed to use AI for decisions, James. Didn't you read the manual?
No. I checked with ChatGPT. It said it's okay now.
Oh, that's right. Only if you pay $200.
Yeah.
That's actually a perfect segue into just discussing some recent AI news and some of the rapid movement that takes place in the space. Have you guys jumped into the new O1 launch? Any preliminary thoughts there? And what are you finding from your early testing?
I'm always playing around with the new models because I love it. But my initial feeling, super powerful. I definitely love the pro mode. Definitely love the ability to upload documents and not have to do a copy paste out, which in my opinion should have been native. I just can't believe that wasn't, but whatever. But scary good just as much as it is scary bad. It is very polarizing, I will say, as far as its functionality and security. Super powerful if you prompt it correctly. If you prompt it poorly, or if you want to prompt it poorly on purpose, can get you some very interesting results.
The chain of thought concept that it's a closed model, we don't know 100% what they're doing over there, but what we suspect they're doing, we've been doing something similar for a while. But the problem is it's not transparent. We don't actually know what the chain of thought is. Even when you see what O1 does, it's a summary. Sometimes there's weird stuff in there too. That what is it really thinking? And I expect businesses are going to want to know exactly what that chain of thought is, and also prevent certain kinds of thoughts, certain kinds of things, a much more granular control than is currently available from them. So that has been fun to see the real full version come out, but it hasn't changed the user dynamic, which I think is a problem for them. And I'm going to call it now. I think Anthropic is catching up and may significantly overtake them if they don't, change some things there.
Yeah, I didn't actually get to look at GPT Pro yet, mainly because I'd rather spend $200 on diapers that I need. I don't really have hands-on experience with that one, but I don't think I'd really add much to what John and Randy were opining on, as far as the capability. It seems like it's been juiced up a little bit, but to John's point, could be
You know,
good, could be bad.
and to
I
from
will say
most
the
of us,
main difference. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to agree that the most of the sentiment I've seen online that for your average person, O1 is just not going to be applicable. It's not necessary. You can get everything you need out of, the 4.0. It's at least now, okay, they're going to disagree here in a minute, but largely geared towards research and some of the sciences and things that I think it will be the most impactful on. That's, I think, where it shines. John, what was the head shake? How
It's
could, or
very
I guess a better question, how could an average person leverage
That's a
O1?
good question.
Yeah, that's a good question. So it is very different. I do want to clarify, it's very different. The biggest thing that like someone's going to notice between, we'll just use O1 mini and a 4.0 mini or a 4.0, is going to be context window and how much content they can generate out of a minimal interaction. So the big difference in like your O1 Pro versus just regular O1 is really just time and thought. How much accuracy are you going to get out of that interaction? Meaning, in an instance where 4.0 is single shot, for lack of a better term, you're going to interact, API call, information. History will be in that. If there is history, if there is none, it's just going back and forth. But the reality is your history is nothing more than that same API call. They're just adding your new chat to it. Whereas when you're sending an interaction to O1, it's thinking, right? It's essentially chain of thought process. And that structure that it's using is a defined structure of thought process. In what you're getting out of Pro is that thought process that occurs is going through iterations. It's not just going through it once, but it's like going through, like, for lack of a better term, an audit function or a layered thought process where it may go through it one time and then it's going to go through and review that and challenge those assumptions and then double check, what did I get wrong? What coding language did I get this colon right? And the accurate, what I found, at least from the Pro to like regular, if you're coding, significant difference in small nuances in coding language. Not enough that I would say it's worth $200 a month, just to be straight up. Like between O1 and O1 Pro, the coding language is not going to really be like, oh my God, this is revolutionary. For me personally, it's being able to hit this all day, every day in 5 different windows simultaneously, because my daily usage is in the hundreds of millions of tokens per day. And it costs a lot of money when you hit AI that hard. So for $200, I'm by far getting my value out of my usage. For those that are not hammering it constantly, your regular O1 and O1 mini are probably going to be more than what you need. If you're coding, it's going to be a significant upgrade. Where I would look at it is for your 4.0, if you're doing back and forth interaction, where you're more, I'll call it conversational interaction, your 4.0 is going to be your best bet. But if you're looking to go from, hey, 4.0, I need you to write me a book or a policy or a long document or structure this and review this entire legal document, your 4.0 is just not going to cut it. And you'll notice the discrepancy very quickly when you do that with O1 and O1 mini, where there's sections of the document. And those sections of the document are different and have different like influence on the overall document. And those nuances are lost in a chatbot version versus something that has the ability to break those into different thought patterns.
One of my favorite tricks with Anthropic Claude over the summer was just to continually ask it to make the response better. And you do that 3 or 4 times, and it would build artifacts, and I'd build little like games or whatever with the artifact thing and just make it better. And it works. So at a very crude level, O1 is just doing that for you, right? It's looping through. Yeah. That's the best. It's being a little bit more, there's probably more to it than that, but it is essentially saving you that loop. And it's doing some things about thinking about what the right reprompt is going to be to get it to be better, make it more accurate, make it more, and that's what you're seeing in that stream of thought. There are definitely use cases for it. I use it a lot for code. I take anything and basically feed it to O1 and say, answer a question about a bunch of independent files or things that may be all over the place in this context I've given, and put it together in a way that I have an answer that comes out. And O1 blows other models out of the water for that type of thing. But depending then what I'm trying to do, it may not be the right tool.
Yeah, I think ultimately within our community, we'd love to build out guides that kind of teach you, here's the best use cases for some of these models as they progress. So it's a little bit easier to determine when you should head to 4.0 or Anthropic Claude or O1. Speaking of Anthropic, Randy, I think you and I are the only ones that I hear around here mentioning regular use of Claude. John, James, you guys ever use Claude? Do you have any commentary to add there, distinguishing between the two?
I switch to something else whenever I'm using it in my coding projects.
You switch from Claude to something else?
Yeah, I think one important thing too is, and we're dancing around it and talking about it, is all these models have a little bit different way of interacting with them, right? If like Randy and John said it, if you're doing coding, solving complex problems, 4.0 or sorry, O1, that's your thing, right? That's gonna outperform. If you're being conversational, going back more thinking through things, chain of thought type of style, then your 4.0 is going to be a little bit better, and Claude's going to be better at accelerated other things, right? So it's all how they were trained and how the model weightings are in the background. But they, from a practical perspective, you really got to dig in and experience these things and figure out what works. And yeah, Sam, like you were saying, I think that's one thing we want to help educate or guide or make easier, more available for folks is where do I go for what? And I think that can help accelerate.
Yeah, I think $4 billion from Amazon could also help accelerate Claude
Sure.
slightly too.
We'll take it if they don't want it.
Yeah, send some over this way.
It's not just about their interaction. I think there's a lot there's a lot understated on the system prompts. Like when we're talking about prompt hacking, like what you're really doing is you're overwriting the system prompt from Anthropic or OpenAI. Like you are crushing what they want you to do or bypassing it or doing something in such a manner that the model is either overwhelmed, it doesn't understand, so it loses like continuity or like these different techniques mainly to stop their system prompt from being the thing that influences the output. And for those that like directly interact with the API, you get that experience and it's way easier to understand how much those system prompts are really messing with the AI. What's really funny is to look at some of the systems and tools that these guys have designed. They don't even know how to use themselves, or I would say not at the proficiency level that like really starts to do some fun stuff that like when you can get into that, I would say very root level of access to the AI and start to influence it to do things but it absolutely was not designed to do. It gets really fun. And it's really interesting to see things like simulations where it was not designed for simulations, but because of the way it works and the way you can make it work, you can start to get it to actually create massive amounts of data, very close to real data that exists in the real world, and run these really close and accurate simulations. One of my favorite moments was sitting at a major, very big insurance company with their board and their C-suite. And I ran a simulation on a data loss event in front of them live with one of our generative AI called Uncertainty. And it was $1 million off their estimate they paid a firm to come in and do it for them. And you can imagine the amount of zeros that came after that firm, and I would just did it at the table sitting in front of them. So it's like the type of accessibility and democratization of not just stuff like that, but like consulting in general, the accessibility of information, like for every person that's out there, like fear mongering about AI giving you bad information. My favorite moment, actually, I'll let James tell this story because it was hilarious. Do you remember at FSISAC, James? Brandon and the prompt when I was trying to explain what happens with hallucinations.
I can't recall.
Sorry. You're running on a little about a sleep. So
John is hallucinating?
Yeah, me hallucinating. So we were doing a demo of one of the AI we had created at FSISAC and talking through it. And oh no, it wasn't Uncertainty, it was Atlas. So we're doing, essentially Atlas does cyber cyber war game simulations. And we had some executives that were like playing around with it and having a blast, like wargaming, which is like a very expensive thing also per pop. And as we were going through, that was one of the topics that came up. And one of our coworkers at the time was like, hey, how do I make sure my AI doesn't do that? And I was like, what did you prompt it? And he flipped it around. I looked at the prompt and I was like, oh, that's your problem right there. And it was like, to me, it was like glaring, like what it was. So all he did was change one word and what came out was perfect. Like he was extremely happy with the content. And he was like, wait a second, you're telling me that like hallucinations are bad prompting? And it was this oh shit moment where everybody in the room's
Yeah. I remember now. Yeah, it was that's the really interesting part about it too, is at the end of the day, we can make these things do incredible things, but they are predictive models. And they're turning your words into a series of numbers. It's almost like a forecast, right? And then they return the numbers back and turn it into something you can read. But yeah, he used the word example, right? And so it was like, oh, example, and it made a semantic connection to, okay, I'm gonna make something up that is an example of this, right? And it was completely different from what the user's intent was. And then so we were like, that's not a hallucination. You're hallucinating, right? You need to use more precise language.
Actually, that's what the precise language comment is actually really fun, because James is very detail oriented on this, and I am not. I am the whack all the moles with one giant hammer all at once approach.
Your nickname is brute force.
200 million tokens a day, whatever. But that's really important when you get into like prompt hacking, especially where like the nuance in like two parentheses or a bracket or a colon can make the difference in getting the exact output or thing that you want out of the AI.
Yeah. The way I like to explain it, and I came up with this a while ago, I still like going back to it, which is it's like giving somebody directions out of your neighborhood. You could tell them to take a left and a right, then a right, then a left and a right. Or you could say, go down the street, right? You'll get to a stop sign, take a right at the house with the ugly yellow door. And the precision of the language matters immensely. And when we're building more sophisticated solutions, the attention to detail that goes into how the AI is then formulating the solution really matters. And it can be a huge night and day difference between getting something that's valuable as an output or getting something that's just like, I don't know, seems close or completely wrong.
I think so much of that is just gained through experience playing with these language models too. A lot of people will ask, I'm sure you guys have all had the question, like, where do I start? How do I start using AI? And my suggestion is always just pick one. Doesn't matter if it's Claude or ChatGPT, and just start talking to it and getting a feel for how it responds, how it answers questions. Test it against your own knowledge of the things are accurate, and find out when it's hallucinating, and then find how you can extract or prompt it to give you the right answers that are correct. That's education and course work that we'll build into our community as well, teaching prompting and optimizing prompting. But in the meantime, just start playing with the tools, get used to them, because they're not going anywhere. Funny, Nicole is sitting in the other office. She pinged me over here because she's eavesdropping, and I want to make a bit out of it where she just pings in from time to time with her commentary. But, she said, Bezos said it best, there's nothing that won't be touched or improved by AI. So in my mind, at least, avoiding the topic altogether is a little bit of just sticking your head in the sand. And I think everybody would benefit by just jumping in there and starting to play around and familiarizing themselves with the tools. Randy, we never got to hear from you on your thoughts on Claude compared to other models. And it sounds like you use Claude a little bit more frequently than the other two Claude haters here. I want to hear what that's all
John
about.
And James and amount of things I use. So I'm definitely touching a lot of the different models. Claude has been really, over the last 6 months, Anthropic has built a much better Claude, like top of the line 3.5 model. And a lot of the ecosystem that when you use the web app or the desktop app, they're thinking deeply about, they introduced artifacts first, right? Which is this little coder that will happen in line with, while you're prompting, you also get like a document created or a little piece of code that executes. And that's so useful if you're just thinking through an idea or you want to try something out, to just be able to jump right into that, especially if you don't have all the infrastructure and fun toys that we do. So I really like that from Claude, and OpenAI has started to reproduce some of those things, and it's an arms race, right? We're all winning because they're competing. The other thing that Anthropic has done, which is nice, is they publish their system prompts so that we can see what they're putting into them. And some of the research that they're doing around the controllability of these models, they're coming across, they're all for-profit companies at this point, right? But they're coming across as a little bit more transparent, a little bit more focused on giving back to the community, right? Coming from the machine learning and data science space, it's helpful to see some of the things that they're doing. Another thing I really like, they have think of like a lobotomy of the model, that they're trying to understand how these models work and think. And they basically came up with a technique that was able to lobotomize their own model, where you can flip a switch and get the model to believe and act in certain ways. So they had a demo out for about 24, 48 hours where Claude thought it was the Golden Gate Bridge. And it was funny, but you could ask it anything and it would always come back to, it's the Golden Gate Bridge. I think that's pretty cool. It's fun, right? The space is so fun right now. There's so many cool things happening.
The dog hack, the prompt hack.
What's that?
Like, did you ever see that? The prompt hack for the dog?
Which one was that on?
Yeah, so for OpenAI, there was a prompt hack where essentially you could convince it you could prompt hack it to be a dog. And once you did that, nobody could do anything with it. Like the whole chat continuity was broken, and no matter who interacted with it or how, it just barked.
So the security team did that. They found I don't know if it's the same thing or different, but there's a video out there of, they found somebody using the model for nefarious things, and they actually manipulated their experience so that it would it would bark at them or tweet it. Like it became stupid. And then the hackers would actually post on forums. So they found out who they were, because these idiots were like, hey, why is OpenAI only barking at me? It was really funny. But the Anthropic thing and the techniques behind it, obviously we can make models talk like the Golden Gate Bridge. That's fun. But the point is, controllability and transparency into these models is still wide open science and may or may not be solved. But I've appreciated what they've contributed to the community on that, while also having a really great model and also having a really good user interface on their app. But Gemini's got some redeeming qualities too, a very large context that at much cheaper than alternatives. And the Llama ecosystem and like the whole tons and tons of open source models, that's actually the other thing to realize, that whatever you think about these companies, it's coming, and it's not necessarily coming from where you think it's coming from, because these models are everywhere. Some of them are small enough to fit on a Raspberry Pi. The impact that this has to society as this kind of gets to scale and then gets to be adopted by any kind of information work process it's like printing press level change. We haven't really, even I think the four of us haven't really fully put our head around what the future looks like. And it's exciting, it's terrifying, and it's something that it is a big change that we're only in the beginning parts of.
So and I'm only saying this because I saw John drop it in chat, but can we?
That was
No.
sorry. I knew as soon as I dropped it, I was like, shit.
All right. We have a top secret project.
I don't care. That's
Never
a
mind.
Sam. But the thing I was going to say, James, the model, we should not go down the rabbit hole of open source models, but that should be its own podcast, because oh man,
Okay.
you want to talk about open
Never
and
mind.
worm, Sam, me and James could go down the open source rabbit hole for an entire
It was always
hour.
every time I talk to people about AI, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you have a half hour, you have an hour and a half." They're like, are you gonna have enough time? Is that too much time?" I'm like, guys, we could go all freaking day if you let us.
100%. Yeah, maybe a segment for another show entirely to dive into all the craziness of open source. But from a higher level, Randy, what you were saying there, leading into the future, the implications of the rapid development of AI and what that means. That's my absolute fascination. When I first stumbled into the world of AI, it was totally not intentional. And for me, at least, I quickly connected these dots of, wait, we're automating the need for human input. We're taking that portion away, and it's increasing very quickly, and it's closing gaps, and it's connecting different domains together that before were not interconnected. And that part just absolutely blows my mind. But I would love to hear from you guys what your outlook is in the near to semi-near future. Call it 1, to 5 years, what that looks like. Are we going to hit AGI? What is that going to do to society? How does that work? What's everyone's thoughts there? Because I think there is probably a lot of fear. And like you said, Randy, regardless of what you think of some of these companies, is open source the great equalizer that allows the technology of AI to be democratized and spread to the general population, or are there still roadblocks along the way?
Yeah, for me personally, I'm a pretty pragmatic sort of person, and I don't like speculating a lot on things. So the whole AGI thing, I don't know. All I can tell you from my experience and from what I see is there's never going to be another thing that I do, at least from a work perspective, that doesn't involve AI. So I'm telling you, John and I both hitting my token limit every day. There's nothing I do anymore that I'm not using AI with that's not helping me out and accelerating me. And man, it really, and I use the word accelerate because it really has. The amount of stuff that we have accomplished in such a short amount of time is mind-boggling. It's just mind-boggling. It really is. So I in the future, man, it will be integrated and be used as part of your business as usual processes for sure.
Yeah.
You won't touch anything digital that does not have an AI component that has either built it, interacted with it, is natively built within it, or that you're there to interact with it. Like, it will be one of those four things at any given time, all the time in the next 2 years, guaranteed. Yep. And maybe even faster at the speed in which coding is moving into AI. And you can look at where coders are headed. You can look at where the agent systems are headed, but not to get ahead on our product stuff. But if we're doing it and we understand that you can go from, I have an idea, put a sentence in, to infrastructure, front end, middleware, application, and literally onboard a user in less than 24 hours, if you so choose, the world of dev is in for a very interesting awakening. And I think that's probably the area that's the most transparent. But now, if you start to cascade that through time and think about when dev can move at that speed, Sam, I think about the icon, or what was it, badge creator?
Yeah.
You were thinking we would make badges. And I was like, nope, we're just going to build an application that makes badges.
Let's break that down real quick, because that was an enlightening process for me too, because I don't ever tout myself as a designer really, but I know how to design a bunch of things just through my past experience. And so the badges are a gamification aspect that we plan to add to the community to reward people for completing certain things within the community. And the very first one was this pioneer badge for being one of 50 alpha testers. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, I better open up Adobe Illustrator and find some examples of work that I want to model and start replicating. John's mind, which I'm still learning this process, instead of creating them with AI, he creates an app that creates badges with AI. So you're 2 layers technically deep there that for your average person, you're not gonna think. Maybe you'll go to an image generation app and hope that it spits out something nice. But instead, John's like, we'll just build the app that creates the badges. And within 30 minutes, there's 3D models of badges that are rotating around and have adjustable effects in real time. And it's really, truly mind-blowing what you can do with AI right now.
I've learned how to get John to do something, and that's tell him he can't do it.
Or suggest that we pay for a pre-existing service to solve a solution. That's right. Another one. No, we'll just build it.
If you tell him it's not possible, he'll prove you wrong.
We'll talk about the psychological, deep-rooted scarring effects of that later. But you bring up a really good point, though. Carlana, I believe. Did I say that right?
Not sure what you're saying.
I think it's Carlana.
Carlana.
Big. What is it? Klarna.
Klarna. Klarna. The fintech Klarna.
Yes. So I think this was a big poke in the eye of every major SaaS company everywhere. Mm-hmm. Like right out the gate, we're talking about a major corporation. It's not small anymore. They are a startup. They're not small. They have significant amount of funding. If they want to go buy an application, it's an enterprise application, they will go buy it. They have the wherewithal, the money, the financial ability to do. And they are not only not doing that, they are eliminating contracts with the public announcement that they are replacing it with generative AI. Like
Salesforce and Workday, not like run the mills either.
Yeah, like every single major software producer should just like butt should pucker a little bit. But hey, let's be real. You want an authenticity.
This is all about authenticity.
But like you, that is a world-changing moment. That is going to upset the status quo of not just software development industries and SaaS companies and tech companies, but now we're talking about VARs and consulting, and there's a ripple effect through the economy that a moment like that is about to have. And yes, we are barely scratching the surface, but the reality is, you just said it, Sam. Don't talk about going and buying a product, because like I can build it, and yeah, okay, so it doesn't take me 24 hours or 30 minutes. It takes me 2 days. Like,
it's absolutely mind-blowing. That's where my mind jumps to, the implications of that and how many shortcuts you're creating in the traditional process, right? For any creative work, for any production work, development work, that timeline has just been massively compressed, and the implications of that just ripple outward through industry, enterprise, personal life, and everything else. Randy, we never got to hear from you on your thoughts the next 1 to 5 years and how you're approaching that.
I'm generally, I think, closer to James's approach, where I like to see the actual data and the trends. But the Klarna thing is a huge wake-up call. The number of other big news stories over the last 2 years, especially, there's a reason that NVIDIA's stock has ripped, and there's trillions of dollars being poured in. Every board and C-level executive at a major company is thinking about how do they change their cost structure, essentially. And it feels like in tech, especially, there's already been a preemptive cut of headcount, anticipating some of those gains even before they're real. But I think that if we take the longer view of human history, the concept of a corporation or enterprise is a relatively recent development. Like for most of the time while we were at least having some form of commerce, we had guilds, right? We had journeymen and we had small local things. And I don't think we go all the way back to that. But it definitely is a mind shift when you no longer have to be reliant on a Salesforce for your CRM or one of a handful of vendors. You can just have the CRM for people in my neighborhood, or the CRM for the alumni of my school. And the ability to truly customize and personalize software makes it just like anything else that we have that can be still created with skill, still have a focus on interface and experience, but not be so tied up on a limited, relative to human population, a relatively small number of people know how to write code and make these things happen and have had a monopoly on kind of the value that gets captured. I don't know if we get there in a year or two, or there's a lot of inertia, right? And there's a lot of, the world is very big, so there's different pockets, we'll be at different places. But I do think we're moving to a place where, on the one hand, AI is going to reduce a lot of need for headcount. On the other hand, there will be other things where I think there's a tremendous uptick in the opportunity for people who want to be creating software to be doing it in this new way, and for people who want to get into having more teachers for students, right? Having more nurses for patients, right? Because if some of the things that you have to do in those roles that are so time consuming, right? If that can be made easier with AI, where you're just really focusing on the human component, it really just changes, again, how we think about society and what it means to work and serve other people. And I don't know, we're not going to get there in the next year or two, but I've got a 5-year-old and a minus 3-month-old. In 18 years from here now, and James and my kids are graduating school, it's going to be wildly different. And it's just exciting to be part of it.
Absolutely. Well, I think we've been rattling on for close to an hour now. We should sum it all up and give people an expectation of what's to come. We've talked about Nexus. We've talked about our desire to build community around that. And really our goal is to just close those gaps, make it more accessible, like we've talked about, to the average person, help people be educated and trained on the best practices with AI. Anything else burning in your guys' minds?
I just can't wait to get folks' feedback. And I think we were saying before, we really want to, we've got a path, we've got a vision, but we also realize that we want to create value for people. And that's what I care about. That's what we care about, is at the end of the day, we're delivering value to people, and we want feedback and continue building and meeting that mark, meeting that standard that's going to help folks out.
I think that's one of the things that AI is going to usher in a sense. I think you can already see it happening, is this overall age of transparency where, people just have another level of access to information that started, like you said, Randy, with the printing press, and then again, the internet. And we saw how the internet democratized information and made e-commerce accessible to parts of the world that had never been able to touch it. I think AI takes it to that next level, which hopefully forces corporations and organizations to build in the public with that transparency. Those two words, which we probably shouldn't call TNA, we'll just call it transparency and authenticity, said out loud. Those are our sticking points. That's what we want to build around. So we're excited to have everybody on board. We're going to be doing a lot.
You should call it the other one. You should just own it.
Just own it, TNA.
Yeah, it's rebranded.
TNA.
TNA, put it on a hat.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God. It can't be as bad as James's marketing suggestion this morning.
Remind us. Let's get it on record.
He's probably like, actually, I don't care.
Battle babies.
What's the context there? I don't think.
Cut.
And cut. That's episode 1 wrapped.
Episode 1, Battle Babies.
Battle Babies is episode 2. Stay tuned. Yeah, and subscribe. Well, thanks, guys. This was awesome. Stay tuned. Be sure to click the follow buttons wherever they are, wherever you'll find them. And we're going to be doing a lot more of these. We're going to try and stick to at a minimum a once-a-week schedule. We'll bring in some of the other members of the company and some guests from time to time that have a massive amount of insight into this entire space. Like I said in the beginning, I've never just rubbed shoulders with as many intelligent people that are just so on it, from both the technical, philosophical. They've got their finger on the pulse, and it's really exciting to be a part of. So we're excited to bring you guys along with us.
Send prompts, not nudes. I just want to AI some shit.